Go interactive with X-Ray, where we bring trading experts to you live in the platform. Choose sessions, watch live market analysis, and catch up on your favorite market insights anytime. Ask questions and go one-to-one with leading experts on gold, oil, FX, crypto, indices, and equities. X-Ray, your very own analysis team, right at your fingertips. That's higher trading from MarketsX. Discover how some of the top executives are trading their own companies with our Insider Trades tool. See who's been buying or selling stock and what their trades say about insider sentiment. Use this unique big data tool to make more informed stock trades. That's higher trading from MarketsX.
And we're live. What's happening, people? Good afternoon, Europe, and welcome everyone to our live stream. Happy Thanksgiving for our viewers from the US, and all the best. Here's what's happening in the markets today, 26th of November, 2020. Germany sees record jump in COVID cases. AstraZeneca, careful guys, AstraZeneca is facing doubts on the COVID-19 vaccine. Italy is asking the European Union to cancel the COVID-related debt, and Bitcoin nosedives to $17,000 in just a few hours. And in case you missed the announcement yesterday, guys, we are broadcasting on our new YouTube channel. You can find the link in the description down below. If you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, and support us in delivering more great content. This show is proudly sponsored by our partners at Forex and Markets.com. Top 5 things to know in the markets and a new round of market talks with Neil Wilson, Chief Market Analyst at Markets.com. Coming up. Good morning once again, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving to all our friends from the US, our friends and viewers, because we do have some viewers from the US, guys. We are also broadcasting on 9 international podcast sources, and we had quite a few listeners from the US in the past couple of days. So I take this opportunity to thank you, everyone, for listening and encouraging us in delivering more great content. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other major podcast directories. All you have to do is just search for InstructFX in the directory, and very likely you will come across our channel. Now, with the U.S. markets closed today, guys, European currencies took a downturn after a good rally overnight. Let's have a quick look at top 5 things to know in the markets today, and then we're going to welcome Neil Wilson to join us in just a couple of minutes. What do you say? All right, let's crack on. So, number 1 on the board, guys, Germany extends restrictions but doesn't tighten them much. We saw breaking news coming from Germany earlier on that Germany saw a new record COVID cases today. Germany's federal and regional governments extended current restrictions on businesses and social gatherings until December 20th and expanded restrictions on mask wearing, but otherwise shied away from tightening restrictions as it tries to bring its second wave of COVID under control. Europe's largest economy, guys, reported a record high 32,000 new cases of COVID-19 yesterday, as well as over 300 deaths for the third straight day. Having implemented a less strict lockdown to deal with the sound wave of the pandemic, it has so far failed to bring the virus under control. By contrast, France and UK have started to relax their restrictions ahead, hoping to guarantee something closer to normal life by Christmas. Consumer sentiment surveys in both France and Germany both fell by more than expected in November. Data released today showed. Yes, it makes a lot of sense, and it's very, very unfortunate what is going on in Europe. Hopefully, if people understand and they stay indoors for 2 weeks, guys, that's all we have to do. Joint effort for 2 weeks, work from home, stay indoors and wear the mask. And then hopefully we're going to have the virus under control. At least we can stop or slow down the spreading. But anyway, Number two on the board, which is very, very important, guys. AstraZeneca drug doubts. Apparently, we have some doubts over AstraZeneca. Very, very interesting. Doubts are growing about the reliability of the data provided by AstraZeneca and the University of Oxford over the effectiveness of their experimental drug to fight the coronavirus. Now, head of U.S. operations Warp Speed team tasked with funding vaccine development said yesterday that the subgroup, which reported the highest degree of efficacy in the stage 2 trial data released last week, had been restricted to people under 55, an age bracket that appears in any case to be more resistant to the disease, or at least its more severe manifestations. The test data had shown that the drug had prevented the disease in 62% of people who received 2 full doses of the vaccine, but 90% in those who received only a half dose to start with. The half dose experiment started as a mistake, but was extended for the sake of consistency. Very important, guys. I mean, it was expected that you're going to have some bad talks regarding the vaccine. Obviously, nothing goes as planned. We are in 2020, guys, where nothing, absolutely nothing goes as planned. And if you don't believe me, you can ask Donald Trump that nothing goes as planned. So, yeah, let's see where we take it from here. As long as we have this data coming out every day and we can make an informed decision, then I think we're going to be all right. Let's move on to number 3 on the board, guys. Stocks drift, Bitcoin slumps after rally. Global stocks stayed in mostly positive territory before drifting into range. Trading as the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday lured large over the day's proceedings. Weak consumer confidence data in France and Germany were marginally offset by stronger than expected credit growth figures from the European Central Bank, which is also due to release the accounts for its latest policy meeting later today. By 6:30 a.m. Eastern time, guys, Stoxx 600 benchmark index was down less than 0.1%, while the Shanghai Shenzhen CSI 300 index closed up 0.2%. There was a more violent correction in other markets where Bitcoin gave up over 10% after an equally violent rally, while Ripple, another popular cryptocurrency, fell 23%, guys. I got a text on my phone earlier on notifying me that Ripple dropped 23%. Number 4 on the board, Salesforce talks to Slack. Slack stock rose 36% yesterday to close near all-time high on reports that easing talks to be acquired by software giant Salesforce. Very good, very good, very good. Very well done for Slack and Salesforce. And now there's no point talking about them, guys. The U.S. markets are closed today, so there's really no point talking about it. Oil steadies after rally. Exxon's gloomy forecast. Crude oil prices also retraced slightly, but stayed close to their post-pandemic highs after some judicious profit-taking. By 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 GMT, U.S. crude futures were down 1% at 45.22 a barrel, while Brent crude futures were down 0.9% to 48.09. The Wall Street Journal reported yesterday that ExxonMobil had revised down its estimate of oil prices over the next 6 years by between 11 and 17%, indicating expectations of a prolonged impact on prices from the pandemic. Short-term pressures may also be building up, given a surprisingly strong build in U.S. inventories last week, according to U.S. government data released on Wednesday. Right, this is what's going on in the markets today, guys. Not a lot, but by far the most important two news, I'd say, is the one related to the AstraZeneca vaccine and the German restrictions, and Germany seeing again a record number of cases today. Right, let's we have more things to talk about. UK is under the spotlight as well, but we're going to continue the conversation in 30 seconds with my guest for today, with Neil Wilson, Chief Market Analyst at Markets.com. Stay tuned. We're coming back live in 30 seconds with Neil Wilson, guys.
Discover how some of the top executives are trading their own companies with our Insider Trades tool. See who's been buying or selling stock and what their trades say about insider sentiment. Use this unique big data tool to make more informed stock trades. That's higher trading from MarketsX.
Hey, Neil, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Right, good. Right, guys, once again, we have Neil Wilson with us from the heart of London financial sector. Neil, happy Thanksgiving, by the way. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's always funny on a Thanksgiving Day because the US markets are shut, so we get a bit of respite over here in Europe. So it's always a bit more of a relaxed day than normal.
We do. It's not all good news. Unfortunately, we saw the European currencies taking a downturn today. We saw Germany announcing new COVID infections, record levels. But
Mhm.
I want to talk about something else, which is bugging me since yesterday. I saw Rishi Sunak, your finance minister, making a very bold statement. UK is suffering the biggest contraction this year in 300 years. What's your take on that statement?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, it doesn't really tell us anything that we didn't already know. So I think that's why the market didn't really react to it. It's obviously terrible. I mean, but all developed nations are pretty much in the same sort of broad kind of downturn. So it's not a surprise, but it's still just startling to say how bad it is. And obviously it's going to take some time to recover, vaccine dependent and so on. I think one of the most startling figures was the amount of borrowing this year. It's £394 billion this year alone. And that's obviously not been seen since the world wars. But the gilt market didn't move. I mean, the gilt yields were actually lower on the day despite the announcement. So it just shows that the central bank intervention is really still very, very powerful. And is keeping a lid on these short-term yields, whether or not the longer end starts to creep higher as the reflation trade kind of plays out and maybe some inflation starts to come through next year. But at the moment, yields not really doing much.
Okay. I was scared of his statement, to be honest. He's very, very bold, very brave. Now, number 2 on the board, we saw Bitcoin tanking. We saw Bitcoin nosediving. Bear with me for a second. Let me bring the Bitcoin charts on the screen. Where are we at? There we are. Right. Let's have a quick look at Bitcoin. Right. Bitcoin is currently trading below the 17,000 mark. It's at 16,976 on investing.com, on Bitfinex, basically. Wow. What's your take on this one? What happened with Bitcoin?
Well, I think there's a line in the sand, and that was the previous all-time high for 2017, and I think that's really what's it's we've run up to that level, and the market, there's just not enough momentum to drive it higher, and so there's been a big round of profit taking. I think I think the timing of Thanksgiving might have played a part. Whether or not you saw some sort of big liquidations going into Thanksgiving, just because of the fact that other markets are shut, and so some bigger players in the market might have just decided that it was time to sell some of their holdings, just to de-risk a bit over the weekend, with it being at such a sort of precarious point. And so that might have been a factor in that one. But we're seeing it across the crypto space. Ripple today, I mean, it's off by a long chalk. So I think there's still probably momentum here for Bitcoin, but it just needs to consolidate around that sort of 16,600 level again. If you get some consolidation around there, I mean, if it just trades right through it, then that's a problem. But if it consolidates around that 16,600 level, that's the broad area anyway, then you've got potential for it to sort of rebase and rebuild, and then maybe make another sort of stab at that all-time high.
Yes, correct. Now I'm looking at the Bitcoin charts on a weekly chart, and it's a bit scary because I have 3 moving averages, and I see the rally. I see the indicators way in the overbought levels, but I also see a red candlestick, and the 20 moving average is miles away from it. If we're going to see a correction, if Bitcoin will come down and retest the 20 moving average, the 20 MA on a weekly chart is at 12,963. Wow.
It could be pretty brutal. We've been here before with cryptos, and it just goes to show there's still there's still some dubious, it's still a small market. It's not that liquid. It's in its infancy, and it's prone to sort of speculation. and the underlying sort of technology and understanding of it is still not, it's still very immature in that sense. So I think it is ripe for this sort of thing. I think we also had some reports about the US Treasury maybe moving on introducing some sort of know your customer checks for Bitcoin wallets, and that would obviously completely undermine the whole point of, well, one of the big sort of pillars of Bitcoin, which is the anonymity. And if that were introduced in the US, that could kill some of the demand for Bitcoin.
True. What gives me a bit of hope, though, is that on a 4-hour chart, looking at the moving averages, I see Bitcoin very close to the 200 MA to the downside at 15,967. And from my point of view, I think that's where we're going to see a test of the 200 MA. And from there on, we might see a bit of buying power. I mean, I would personally go nuts buying it after such a big drop. I'm not sure if I would invest in it when it's at 20,000 or 19,000 and a half, because we're going into uncharted territories. But after such a pullback, I'd probably go in. We might see retail traders jumping on it. Bloomberg was saying this morning that retail traders increased their trading volumes. If until a few days ago we only had the volumes being given by institutions, in the last few days we see retail traders coming into the game as well.
Yeah, it's been remarkable. This rally really, there's not been the same sort of frenzy around it in that retail space until as you said, the last sort of few days. So yeah. I know that Google searches for Bitcoin are not high. In 2017, the late 2017, they spiked to phenomenal levels on that first boom. But this year, this rally is just not happening in the same way.
But by the looks of things, I mean, it's not a crash, is it? It's not going to go down to 3,000 like it did 3 years ago.
I would never never count against it with Bitcoin.
Yes, indeed. Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that has the ability to jump up and down 2, 3, 5,000 in only a few days. Let's hope it's just a correction that was expected. I started getting worried yesterday when I saw that double top, and I saw Bitcoin is not able to break the 19.5. And it pulled back a couple of times. I got tons of emails, I must be honest. What is happening with Bitcoin? Andrew, you keep telling us it's going to go to 20,000. Well, I'm reading the news, guys. This is what I'm doing. Right. What's the situation? What's the situation in the UK now? Are people a bit more relaxed that you're only a few days away from the lockdown being over, basically?
Yeah, it's the lockdown ends in a few days, but they're introducing this tiering system, and for half of the country, they're going to be effectively still in lockdown. So it's pretty tough. Where I am, thankfully, is the middle tier, so it's not quite so restrictive. But yeah, I mean, we're heading into Christmas. I think everyone just wants to get 2020 out of the way, get to Christmas, and hopefully January looks a bit brighter.
Did you see the news? The news with AstraZeneca, with the vaccine, that it's apparently encountering some difficulties, some doubts around it. Yeah,
there are. I mean, there's clearly doubts about the way that they presented the data. I think, and the fact that the most effective dose was actually an accident. The half dose followed by the full dose. That regimen was actually an accident. They've also merged sort of two data sets that are not identical, if you like, so they don't have the same parameters, and therefore it's a bit dubious whether that's the right thing to do. Also, I think the 90% regimen, the 90% effective regimen was only tested on about 2,500 people. They were all under age 55. So yeah, definitely some doubts, but it's still an effective, even if you take the 62%, the lower effective dose regime, then that is still very good, and 62% is still good enough to get approved and get get that herd immunity next year. So I wouldn't be overly worried about Astra in that sense. I just think that the question over them is whether or not they can make any money off the vaccine. That's the problem for them.
Well, I think considering the situation around the world, Neil, it's not all about making money now. It's about saving half of the population. the way I see it.
Well, I know, but in terms of the share price, that's
Yeah,
in terms of
correct.
Astra's
I'm
share
with you.
price. Yeah.
So we have Pfizer, which has some awkward, let's say, or special, requires some special containers. Yeah, it requires the vaccine to be stored at negative 90
Minus
degrees or
80,
something.
I think. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. That's the problem with Pfizer and Moderna, is that they have to be stored at cold temperatures, and it's much harder to get it out. It's that sort of last mile. You know, you can get it to centres. You might be able to get it to big population centres, get it into the hospitals, get it to distribution networks. But how do you get it to the last mile, the last sort of to get it to people's homes even? So that's going to be tougher. That, you know, it's also the fact that it's more difficult to scale up production of those vaccines, just the way they're made. Whereas the AstraZeneca drug is very, very cheap. It's only about $3 or $4. It's can be stored in fridge temperatures, normal fridge temperatures, and can be scaled production-wise much quicker. So that's why it's such an important vaccine. And that's why I don't think that the fact that there's maybe one or two doubts around the efficacy of the trial and so on, and transparency, I think it's still going to be the most important of the vaccines out there.
Yeah, but considering it was only tested on a very, very small number of patients, you know what I'm afraid of, to be honest, because okay, these vaccines are needed. I get it. They are needed. They probably going to save 30% of population. However, the side effects, because they were developed really, really fast in a very short period of time, and they didn't manage to test millions and millions of people. I'm afraid of the
no,
side
but
effects.
I think well, I'm not an expert on vaccine trials, but my understanding is that side effects are instantaneous, and therefore even 2,500 people, if you had severe side effects, then you'd expect to see some cases. They did the bigger trial was over a lot more people. Tens of thousands of people, so across the overall trial. So I think the European Medicines Agency and the FDA will obviously look at that, and they're not going to approve something that they think could be unsafe. But I think there's always a balance of risk in these things, and ultimately, in order to get back to normal, we need to be taking the vaccine.
And there's another thing that scared me. Thanksgiving holiday, a lot of people are traveling in the US, completely ignoring the restrictions. Yesterday we saw Texas reaching 14,000 new infections a day. What on earth will follow in the next 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a clear risk, definitely, that the US goes through quite a high, a period of very high caseload and very high hospitalizations. They've had 16 days straight of record hospitalizations from COVID in the US. And I think with the winter coming, very cold temperatures, that is a recipe for, combined with this Thanksgiving travel and families getting together, and then also heading into Christmas, when again families might be getting together. Yeah, so it's going to be a spike in cases. And I think what you might see, and this is a problem for US assets, US markets, is does Joe Biden basically push the governors of the states to lock down? And if you get a lockdown in the US, I know they're not talking about that, but they may, there's a risk that they get driven into that scenario, and then that will severely hurt the recovery in Q1 next year, which we were expecting to be quite good, but that could really dent the Q1 recovery story.
Yeah, when Joe Biden announced that within 3 weeks he's hoping we're going to have a vaccine ready and he's going to start vaccinating the population, I think people took that for granted, and they were like, it doesn't matter, in 3 weeks we're going to get a vaccine. Funny one, I saw Donald Trump's statement, our favorite, Donald Trump. We saw his statement. I saw his statement this morning, and it kind of broke my heart, man, in a way, to be honest. It wasn't the same Donald Trump. Same Donald Trump and Joe Biden announced they're gonna celebrate Thanksgiving home with family. They're not gonna travel, which is much appreciated. But Donald Trump said America is in a great shape. America is in, the usual encouraging messages, but it wasn't Donald Trump, man. I could feel he was upset. He was really upset and disappointed. I think the elections got to him. He wasn't expecting.
Well, he lost.
He wasn't
And
expecting this
I don't
whatsoever.
think he's known as a very good loser. So I think that's that's just tough, isn't it?
It broke my heart. It's the first time in 4 years when Donald Trump's speech breaks my heart, man.
Well, that's politics, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Right. So, do you have any stocks for us today, Neil? Is there any stock we should keep an eye on apart from AstraZeneca tumbling?
Yeah, I mean, U.S. markets closed today, so it's a bit our signals are not firing in the same way because of that. So, but what I want obviously I can't get this far without talking about Tesla. It rose over 3% yesterday, another record high. Some of the analysts talking about bull cases on that one. In excess of $1,000 for the stocks. That'd be doubling of where it is now, trading about 557, I think. So that's one to watch. That you just get this momentum into it. That's really, really. It's a bit like.
Hold on, because I'm losing you. No, there's an issue with the sound, Neil. If you can hear us, bear with me for a second. I'll try and fix it. No, we have an issue with the sound. I can't hear you. I cannot hear you whatsoever. Bear with me for a second. I'll try and call you back. Bear with me. Hold on. Right, guys, let me get Neil back on the line because something happened. Something dropped. Bear with us for just a second. Meanwhile, 30 seconds of adverts. Stay tuned.
Keep your finger on the market pulse with the News Alerts tool. Stay up to date on the latest sentiment across all the major asset classes. Uncover bullish or bearish signals tied to specific assets that could be developing before major price moves, and track how news sentiment correlated with price in the past. Track the news volume on an asset, its fear index, and get a better feel for its underlying strength. All with News Alerts, your central hub for market information. That's higher trading from MarketsX.
All right, and we're back with Neil Wilson. Neil, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, now we can hear you too. I don't know what happened. The sound dropped for a second.
Oh, I see.
Right. So you were saying, sorry, very sorry about that.
No. Where was I?
I don't know because you were talking and I couldn't hear you anymore.
Stocks.
Tesla.
I think we're talking about stocks, and I was looking at Tesla, and then I think the UK banks, which are interesting. It was explaining that the stocks in like Lloyd's and so on went up quite sharply on Tuesday, as you got a bit of a positive kind of reflationary trade happening, and then sold off yesterday. So they're by a sort of similar margin, like 4 or 5% on Lloyd's. So interesting volatility to trade on that, because they're basically trading on this risk on, risk off, or rather rotation on, rotation off from growth into value. Do you get inflation starting to creep through? Are you seeing the break-even inflation rate start to creep higher? What are bond yields doing? So it's a really interesting market. And I think if you subscribe to the view that, that essentially we're going to get vaccines and things are going to return to normal and bond yields might creep higher, inflation might start to come through, then the banks would be a pretty good bet. Also, the UK, they're very, very exposed to the virus, and therefore vaccines are more positive for UK versus other countries. And then also looking at the UK with the FTSE, next year's dividend yield expected is 4%. That's much, much higher than any other major developed market, stock market. And its performance versus the rest of the world for the FTSE 100 has been absolutely abysmal for years. So if you're sort of betting on the kind of, everything that's been badly beaten down for some time now, if you subscribe to the view that these are the sectors and parts of the market that will recover next year, then the FTSE 100 is looking like probably the worst performer so far, and therefore maybe the one that has the most upside to catch up.
Yes, by the dip. That's correct. Right. So we're keeping an eye on Tesla, which is up over 450% this year, I think. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was up another 3% yesterday to another record high. And just looking at some of the analysts, they're getting increasingly bullish on the stock. I mean, partly because they've been called, some of them have really been caught behind the curve on it, and they keep trying to catch up with their price targets. But there's one, I think last week, sort of highlighting a bull case of over $1,000 for the stock, so potentially double where we are now, and that's really on the basis that it's going to move from being this straight car manufacturer to being a software business basically that has sustainable services revenues, that kind of thing. So I think Tesla as a software play is potentially one that has further upside, but again, the valuations are just so extreme. That it's prone to selling off quite sharply. You can see 10% drawdowns in Tesla quite sharply when the sentiment flips. So interesting one to play if you're trading stocks.
Long term, I personally love Tesla, and I love what Tesla does. I think people were not ready for electric cars. Now I think they started understanding how it works, because we all like our big engines, our 5-liter, 6-liter engines, vroom vroom. But once SpaceX went through the roof basically, and Tesla will be listed on the S&P, I think this is it. From here on, Tesla, unless Elon Musk does something very Elon Musk, let's say. But I can see a very clear trajectory towards the upside for Tesla.
Yeah, I think they've clearly got the sort of powertrain, the battery technology in advance of most peers, and like you say, the S&P inclusion is important. But I just wonder, once you hit 2030 and in Europe, when the point at which basically petrol and diesel cars will be banned, the big OEMs, your BMW, Mercedes, Audi, even lower tiers, sort of Ford and so on, they're going to be in the game of electric cars, and then they've got the distribution networks, they've got the servicing networks for the garages, the dealers, and I just wonder if they will continue to dominate sales wise, and then that might be the point at which Tesla becomes a bit unstuck. But that's years in advance, and Tesla's a long way, that several years to extend its lead in the technology space, but there's risks to Tesla, I think, and well documented. But it seems it's confounding all those risks so far.
Tesla was ahead of the game all these years, and I think in 30 years we're gonna see Tesla, I don't know, issuing like a UFO kind of thing. By the time Ford probably will launch his first electric car, that's gonna be mass purchased, Tesla will release something else.
That's very possible, yeah.
Right. I'm very curious to see how the markets will open tomorrow. No, tomorrow is a short trading day. On Monday, we're going to have a big day on Monday with the U.S. markets open. Yeah, because tomorrow they're going to trade for a few hours only. And on Monday, we're going to have the big boom.
Yeah, sorry. It's a big day, I think, Monday, as you say, just because of the holidays, most people will be off tomorrow as well. So I think markets kind of sideways until Monday, and then we get to sort of recess where we are with vaccines. Remember, it's Monday means the vaccine news, so we might get something on the vaccine on Monday.
All right. Neil, thank you ever so much for being with us today. Happy Thanksgiving if you're celebrating. And I'm
not Americans.
I know. I'll talk to you on Monday.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend, and thanks again for being with us today. Right, we had Neil Wilson today, guys, from the heart of London. Let's have a look at some charts and see how the markets traded today. What do you say, guys? Shall we? We're going to come back in 30 seconds with the charts of the day and the signals of the day. Let's see what the markets have to digest today.
Discover how some of the top executives are trading their own companies with our Insider Trades tool. See who's been buying or selling stock and what their trades say about insider sentiment. Use this unique big data tool to make more informed stock trades. That's higher trading from MarketsX.
Right, and we're back as promised. We're going to start with crude oil WTI, guys, again on a 60-minute chart. We see crude oil trading currently at 45.32. Tiny movement today. It wasn't that much of a movement. 45.33, 45.32, somewhere there for crude oil futures. RSI stochastic are pointing upwards, so there's still a bit of hope. Let's see what's going to happen with oil. Basically, I see the markets calming down after the good rally that oil had in the last 2-3 days, let's say. And obviously, with the US stock markets being closed today, there's very little movement to be noticed. Now we see the euro, guys, which shed quite a bit of profits today. Currently 1.1901 for euro USD. We see the euro testing the 50 moving average, moving below that 50 MA. And in the last half an hour or so, we see a green candlestick opening. This might be, the euro might push a bit higher in the absence of pressure from the US markets today. RSI stochastic turned around from their lows, are pointing upwards, so there might be a bit of bullish momentum for the euro. Let's move on to the cable, guys, to the pound, which is not doing that well. 133.29 for the pound, and by the looks of it, the pound is moving downwards. It wants to test, it wants to head towards the 200 MA to the downside at 132.97. Okay, it's not a million miles away. We're only 34 points away from that 200 moving average to the downside. RSI stochastic are still set lower. They are pointing downwards, even though the we can see the stochastic at the bottom of the chart that went way below the oversold levels. We might see the pound testing the 200 MA at 132.97, and we take it from there. We might also see a rebound. USD JPY, let's see what happened with the US dollar today. Not much. We see the USD JPY trading still below that 200 MA, 104.28 as things stand right now, and the 200 MA is at 104.32. So a lot of resistance as things stand right now. If the situation will continue like this, if things will continue like this, probably the 50 MA will cross the 200, then pushing the US dollar towards the downside versus the Japanese yen. Now, the Aussie dollar, just like the European currencies, we can see the Aussie dollar trading more or less sideways in the last couple of trading sessions, and with a bit of an accent towards the downside. 0.7356 for the Aussie dollar versus the US dollar right now. Still well supported by the 50 MA. It didn't manage to go below the 50 MA. RSI somewhere in between. Usually when the RSI goes in between like that, we might see a bit of an uptrend. Stochastic, though, is pointing downwards. So let's see what's going to happen. If gold futures go down, guys, then probably the Aussie dollar will go down as well, as gold and the Aussie dollar tend to move in the same direction. So we might see a retest of the 200 MA to the downside at 0.7316 versus the 0.7357 that we're seeing right now. USD CAD, right? We see a bit of a bullish sentiment on the USD CAD, 130.15 as things stand right now. As we speak, guys, the US dollar is pushing through the 50 moving average, heading towards the 200 moving average at 130.52 to the upside. We might see that happening, who knows, by tomorrow. Now, there's no point looking at the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, guys, or any American stocks. Let's look at the US dollar index, which is acting just like the USD CAD pair. There you go. This is the USD CAD, and this is the dollar index. The same movement, the same upward movement. 92.10 for the US dollar index futures. Again, trading a bit higher above the 50 MA, probably targeting the 200 MA to the upside at 92.36. Or somewhere in that region. The RSI did not manage to get all the way up into the overbought levels. We see the stochastic turning around. So wait a bit and see what's going to happen. We're going to have a look at the trading signals anyhow in a minute, and maybe the markets will give us a better indication. But for now, I see more potential to the downside, to be honest, judging by technical indicators, by the RSI and the stochastic, which both turn around. And seeing that price trading at the 50 MA again makes me think we're going to see a bit more weakness on the US dollar index. Now, gold futures, guys, again trading very low, $1,805 for gold futures. We saw gold retesting the 50 MA at 1,812, and the price got rejected, literally. RSI stochastic both turned around, pointing downwards. No good news on the horizon for gold as things stand right now. Brent oil futures, guys, or the UK oil or the European oil. What's happening? 48.07 as things stand right now. Again, very similar situation to crude oil WTI. We saw a bit of a drop overnight and today. And today it went sideways more or less, well supported by that 50 moving average. Let's see what's going to happen. There's not a lot of volume in the markets, guys, to help us get a direction. Silver futures, just like the gold futures, are trading way lower, 23.25 for silver futures right now. RSI stochastic both pointing downwards. Let's see. There's no real positive on silver or gold, at least from the technical point of view. Right. Another look at Bitcoin, guys. We're looking at Bitcoin trading at $16,818 right now, with the RSI and the stochastic crawling in the oversold levels. We see a gold cross to be formed there by the 50 and the 200 MA. I'm afraid we're going to see Bitcoin testing the 200 MA to the downside at 15,966 as things stand right now. Again, it's not a million miles away. Here from 16,827 down to 15,966. There's still a bit of way to go, but I think that's the most probable direction as things stand right now. And I'm looking at the charts on a 4-hour chart. Right, Ethereum. Again, we were talking about Ethereum a few minutes ago, which dropped over 20% today, currently trading at $502. Wow. And if you remember, guys, 2-3 days ago, Ethereum was trading at $621. It lost over $120 in only 24 hours. Wow, you can see the whip, so you can see what's happening with these cryptocurrencies. They can bring you tremendous profits on a very short term, but if you're caught on the wrong side of the trade, guys, wow, God help us all. The good news is I'm going to have a new webinar series in December where I'm going to teach every single one of you how trading works, all the asset classes breakdown, and how to try and stay away from whipsaws like this in the market. So stay tuned, guys. I'm going to come back with more news as we get closer to December. Right, 503.90 for Ethereum. Again, RSI stochastic way in the oversold levels, and that 200 MA to the downside at 466 looks very, let's say, promising, at least from the technical aspect as things stand right now. Right, guys, this is it from my side. Happy Thanksgiving once again for all our viewers and friends from the US. Europe, take it easy. What can I say about Europe? I do hope the situation clarifies a bit in Europe, and the spread of this bloody COVID virus that turned the world economies upside down will stop eventually. This is it from my side today, guys. Tomorrow is Friday. Join me tomorrow morning for a new round of market talks. Until then, remember to trade responsibly and may all your trades be in the money.